I'm here at the downtown Jerusalem, at the graveside of the well-known teacher and miracle worker Jesus of Nazareth, where a dramatic story is unfolding. It would seem that after his death at the hands of the Roman forces 2 days ago, the sealed grave is now empty. Oh, wonderful. Here is Mary Magdalene, who claims to know what's going on. Mary, could you tell us what you know, please?
Well, I came to the tomb this morning first thing, while it was still dark, and when I got there I saw that the stone had been moved away. So I ran back to his friends Simon, Peter and John and told them they've taken the Lord away, and I don't know where they've put him.
Right, gosh, can you tell us any more?
Here's Peter, ask him.
Good night. Oh, blimey, down.
Thank you, Mary. Peter, could you tell us any more that you know about what's going on?
Well, only that Mary here, she came running back from the tomb this morning saying Jesus was gone. And well, so John and I, we got up and ran to the tomb, and John, he looked in and he saw these strips of linen lying there that Jesus had been wrapped in. And I pushed past them and went in, you see, because I'm me. And I went in, and the strips of linen were there, and his headband was there separate from his head, from the rest of the bedclothes, and he was gone. And and John here is saying, well, he's risen from the dead.
I'm sorry, risen from the dead?
That's what he said. But I mean, it's all a bit much for me, afraid. I'm going to have to go home and get my head round it. But is this really what the scripture says?
It's true. I tell you, I looked in up after Peter and John, and I saw two men seated where Jesus' body had been. They were dressed in white, and I was crying, and they asked me why, and I said to them, well, where is my Lord? Where have you put him? And then I left the tomb, and there was a man outside. I thought he was a gardener, and he saw that I was crying. And I said to him, well, where have you put him? Where is my Lord? Tell me so I can go and get him. And then he looked at me and he just said one word. He said, Mary, and I knew it was him. I said, Rabboni, teacher. And I ran to him, but he told me not to hold on to him because he hadn't yet returned to the Father. Instead, that I should go and tell his brothers that he was going to return to his Father and their Father, to his God and their God.
Right, thank you. How astonishing. Thank you, Mary. Well, with that breaking news, it's now back to the studio. No doubt we'll be hearing more on this later. Yes, I found something more amazing about the circumstances than Jesus' death. With me now is Shima, a guardian, one of the temple guards. Shima, what happened to you? Were you sent to arrest this Jesus?
Well, yes, it was 3 days ago we were sent to arrest Jesus. We thought there'd be trouble after all the crowds and everything, and riots and so on the previous week. One of his men, a rough, burly sailor type, well, he drew a sword and lopped off the high priest's servant's ear. Jesus told them to put their swords away. Then he touched the servant's ear and it was healed.
Gosh.
I never saw anything like that. He must have known where it would all end, though, yet he came along quietly, like a lamb to the slaughter, you might say.
Goodness, thank you for that. Right, it seems amazing that anyone would go along with quietly given this guy's reputation. Yet what happened during Jesus' arrest is still more puzzling. I need to talk to somebody else. Adelia, tell us about Jesus' trial by the Roman governor. Can you come closer, please? Thank you. Would you tell us about Jesus' trial?
I've seen him come and I've seen him go through Pilate's court, but there was nobody like him. Nobody. The high priests, they sent him over because they wanted him dead, but they couldn't do that themselves, so they had to send him through to the Pilate, to the governor, and he never said nothing to the governor. I mean, the governor asked him questions and he never said anything in reply. I thought, that's rude. You don't ignore the governor when he asks you a question. It's rude. I thought he'd explode. But it was all, but he was kind of quiet, like, and he kept calm. And then he said, "Are you the King of the Jews?" to him. And Jesus, he said, "You said it," or something like that. I can't quite remember what it was. And then Pilate did a really weird thing. He said, "I find no guilt in this man." And well, he knew Jesus from Galilee, so he sent him over to Herod, you know, because, you know, I never saw anybody like him when he was facing Pilate. Like, it was just, I don't know, was it nothing? Was it him or not? I don't know. It's really funny.
Well, thank you, Adelia. I think we'd better head over to the palace and see if we can find out more. Back to you. Herod's palace, and with me is Ebed Melech, servant to Herod. Tell me, Ebed, did you see Jesus in Herod's court recently?
Oh yes, it was all quite entertaining. King Herod had just been longing to meet this Jesus, having heard of all the tricks and stunts he'd pulled. You know, water into wine, feeding crowds with a few bits of bread, the usual stuff. Anyhow, it was all a bit of an anticlimax, really. The king asked him some questions, but he just stood there dumb. Overawed, I think, you know, at the company. And not doing anything, even the slightest bit miraculous. Well, the king, he had some fine clothes, brought in since this Jesus claims to be some kind of royalty. Dressed him up, and oh, the witty remarks Herod made. You'd have died. But soon he got bored. I mean, what's the fun if he won't play along? So the king sent him back to Pilate, thanking him for the distraction. And Pilate and the king became good friends after that.
Right, thank you. Well, I'm not really sure what to make of that, but on the way over here, Adelia, Pilate's water girl, was saying how Pilate was swayed by the shouting crowds to put Jesus to death, even though he could find no crime had been committed. Frustrated by the crowd, he gave in and released a murder. Barabbas, under customary amnesty, has sent Jesus off to be crucified. Simon, you were visiting when all of this happened. Can you tell me, what did you see?
Am I on?
You are on, yes.
Well, I was in my way into town from Cyrene, that's where I come from, because that's why they call me Simon of Cyrene.
Right,
Yep. It's out in the country, you know. I was just coming there, past the courts, and some Romans grabbed me and forced me to carry this large wooden cross. You know, the kind of they use for crucifixion. Right. I looked up, and in front of me there was this, absolute wretch of a man. He'd obviously been whipped and beaten up and all blooded from the treatment he'd been given. He could barely walk. In fact, I don't know how he did walk, that is, since it was like he should have been dead already. Which is why they picked me, I suppose, and made me carry the cross. Anyway, even I struggled to get it up to the top of the hill outside the wall. A crowd gathered as we went. Women were weeping and mourning, you know, just like you sort of see them in those Middle Eastern funerals, that sort of stuff, you know. Anyway, but the guards kept urging him on. Jesus turned to some of the women and told them not to weep for him, but for themselves and their children. For a time was coming, he said, when they would say that barren women, you know, women without children, and those who had never nursed infants, were blessed people, and they would call the mountains to fall down on them. Then they nailed him to the cross and raised him up for crucifixion.
Right, thank you. Goodness, that's pretty gruesome. The worst kind of death for someone who has done nothing at all. There's more from me later, but for now, back to the studio. I've come now to the scene of Jesus' death, Golgotha, the skull, an apt name for such a place of tragedy, death and loss. A number of people were here to see Jesus' last hours, his mother, friends, and even some followers, risking guilt by association and the inevitable Roman guards to ensure Pilate's sentence was carried out. The full details of his brutal death cannot be reported before the watershed, and even after would shock most people to the core yet. I am here with one witness who had hoped for some last-minute reprieve. Obed, can you please tell me what you saw?
Yes, I had heard about this Jesus, about the claims of miracles, healings, and even a dead man alive again. So I came to see what would happen. The guards had mocked him and shared out his clothes. Someone had made up a notice, "The King of the Jews," and placed it above him, making a huge joke of it all, even with his mother there weeping. About the 6th hour, the whole sky turned black and the sun stopped shining. This went on until the 9th hour, and the atmosphere was thick enough to cut with a knife. Then Jesus calls out. It sounds like he's calling to Elijah to come and save him, but others say I misheard. I got a sponge and soaked it in vinegar to wet his lips, and said to leave him alone to see if Elijah would indeed come and save him. But he just cried out and breathed his last. It was the loneliest time of my life. Even one of the centurions said he must have been the Son of God, so deeply were we all affected. He died right there as I watched. No doubt about it, he was dead. The end. I went home.
But was it the end? We heard earlier from Mary and Simon Peter about the claim that Jesus rose from the dead on the 3rd day of his entombment. Was he really buried? Could he have escaped? With me here in this desolate place is Samos the stonemason, who cut the stone and sealed it in place. Samos, could Jesus have been rescued or his body taken out of the grave?
Absolutely not. That stone, as they call it, was no pebble. If you saw it elsewhere, you call it a megalith. I cut it for Councilman Joseph in preparation for his family tomb. Now, this man had money and influence, and he wouldn't have settled for a small bit of rock. Anyway, we rolled it into place and they laid Jesus inside the tomb. Then it was sealed around it to, keep the smell inside, really. And it was marked with Pilate's seal, since the chief priests had convinced Pilate people would come and steal the body and claim he was risen. But I tell you, there was no way the stone was moved in silence or by a couple of disciples without chisels and lifting gear. Those guards knew their lives were resting on keeping this secure too.
Thank you so much for your time.
That's all right.
Thank you. And the rest, you know. The grave was sealed and now it's empty. Jesus is claimed to have risen from the dead and taught to some of his followers. What are we to make of these amazing facts? Melanie Moore reporting for NCC News.